time, so we don't compromise. Let's complete.
I'm on a lonely journey. It's like the air has left the room. Sometimes the unexpected will lure a shattering gloom. The angry voices and tortured hearts have sullied dreams and aspirations. On a cold New England night, I choose the art of dreaming. There's rust in the factory town, and darkness in their hearts. Oftentimes,
Oh my God, this Tuesday is feeling like a Monday.
It is a Monday.
It is a Monday. Hey, Jonathan Berryman.
Good morning. Good morning. How
Listen,
are you?
it's so nice to see you
Well, it's nice to be seen and not.
not viewed.
There you go.
So we've been trying to get together and see each other for a minute now.
Yes, we have.
So Jonathan Berryman, a 25-year resident of New Haven, where'd you go to school? You're not from New Haven, are you?
No, I'm a native of the capital of the Confederacy,
Richmond?
Richmond, Virginia.
All right, go ahead now. So you graduated with honors from Princeton.
Yes.
Oh my God. And where he received his Bachelor of Arts degree in music and continued his studies at Yale University, where he earned his Master's of Music degree in choral conducting and a certificate in sacred music studies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So you went on to Sacred Heart University, got a 6-year certificate in educational leadership. Are you a principal?
Not yet.
Do you want to be a principal?
Yes.
Okay. And currently you're a doctoral student at Southern
SCSU.
Southern Connecticut State University, which is in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And so you served as a climate leader, and you currently serve as music teacher at Barnard Environmental Studies, the magnet school.
Yes.
And you are the director of music for Messiah Baptist Church in Bridgeport,
Mm-hmm.
and director-founder of the Heritage Chorale of New Haven.
It's a busy life.
I mean, okay. I didn't know this about you. I didn't know you were an Ivy Leaguer, like twice over. I didn't know. I don't know anything about you except except that we connect, we laugh, and we joke, and then we have some. And you corrected me on some things. This is how we met. So you were here on somebody else's show,
Yes.
and I heard you talking, and then we had a brief conversation about school uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
And you were saying, I'm against school uniforms because that's the prison to pipeline clothing.
It sure is.
And I was like, it blew me away. I was like, what? And I said to you, had I not gone to federal prison camp, I would have argued with you that uniforms are the great equalizers. But they're not.
They are not.
Because when I've gone to prison, I don't wear khakis to this day. I don't wear khakis, green or tan, because of that reason. Because in my mind, it speaks to uniforms, and uniforms speak to prison.
Pretty much.
So that was our conversation. So ever since then, I've been chasing you to have you on. So
Well,
welcome.
I still have strong opinions about those uniforms because I know people who do their best work in the uniform they were born in.
I like that. But there's a point to this. There's a real point to that statement of uniforms are part of the tools of the prison to pipeline to prison pipeline.
if you were to see how much educational time is spent on trying to tell people what to wear, as opposed to instructing them about the diversity of clothing and apparel and where it fits, you would be amazed.
No, I wouldn't be amazed.
Well. I say that because I was amazed by it.
Really?
They're more concerned about what you have on and less concerned about, in some cases, about who you are or why you're wearing what you're wearing, and more interested in controlling you than setting you free.
So this conversation is going to be a loaded conversation because there's a lot of things going on. Because you have a strong musical background, and that's how I actually know of you through all the musical stuff that you've done. And you can't talk about music in this town or 100 miles of this town without mentioning you. So there's that. And then you can't talk about you without talking about education. And you know, New Haven is ripe with educational issues.
Educational issues and educational opportunities.
Yes, and educational opportunities. I mean, we are rich. We are school rich, I think.
We are
school rich.
We are definitely ahead of our not competitors, but our like-minded. Well, the official term is DIRG, District Reference Group. We are part of DIRG I, which is Hartford is part of DIRG I. Bridgeport, all of the major cities in Connecticut are part of DIRG I.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so this intersection of music and education for you, how did that happen? I mean, because you're rooted in music. I mean, you clearly are rooted in music.
So for me, there was never a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So in growing up in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm glad you asked this question because I thought about it. My middle school principal, Dr. Beverly Whitaker Braxton, and she insisted on her middle name being used, that maiden name, was a musician and also a preacher's kid. So Whitaker was her father, a well-known, respected minister. So that Whitaker had to be there. But she was a musician. Not only did she run that middle school like it was an Ivy League institution, she could sit down at the piano and play it and correct your part. So she was a musician. The vice principal of my elementary school was a musician. And my home church had 6 or 7 educators who were also musicians who would go on to historically black colleges and universities and Columbia for their masters.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something for them as African-American females.
Mm-hmm.
Because they had to have gone in the 30s or 40s.
Yeah.
So you knew they passed the paper bag test. Let me put it that way. But they were very educated people. All the musicians I knew were very educated people and insisted that all the people around them become educated people.
And that's how I remember educators being. Seriously. Teachers were the stalwart of the communities, right? Like you just revered them.
Well, absolutely. And they pushed you. They did a lot of work with you. All of the music teachers I had were solid musicians, and they were solid performers. So they weren't just good teachers. Outside of that school building, you could see them in the community, in their orchestras, in their churches, in choirs, in community choirs, conducting community choirs. So everything that I'm doing now is what I saw the people a generation ahead of me do.
Mm-hmm. So, are you a musician?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you play?
Piano and organ.
Wow. So did you know early on that music was going to be where you would chase your dream?
No. Back then they said if you go into music, you will starve. So I remember vividly in my sophomore year at Princeton, sitting in an economics class, because I was going to be an economics major.
Really?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I was watching these curves shift and these fake models and the intersection of consumption and spending and something else. I said, I don't want to do this. And I had done all the prerequisites. If Princeton honored a minor, I would have a minor in economics.
Oh.
Because that's how many courses I took
in
economics. And I said, I do not want to do this. So I majored in music.
And so you knew music was your calling.
Yeah, but like most of us, knowing it and doing something about it are not always the same.
Mm-hmm. I understand that.
So keep in mind, if you went into music, you would starve. And ain't nothing about me ever liked hunger. So I majored in music and so my father's a minister.
I
You
could
know,
I could hear
preacher.
it. Like I hear it in you. Do people say you really ought to go preach? I know you must have heard this all your life.
I hear it on a regular basis.
Because you have the minister's cadence.
Yes.
You do.
And honestly so.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a matter of fact, I come from a long line of musicians and ministers and teachers and deacons and community activists.
So there's no getting away.
There's no getting away. There's something about that genetic code that is just honest.
Yes, I hear it. I see it. So, all right. So you're doing your time at Princeton.
and yeah.
And so does the way become clearer and clearer about the path that you're going to go, chasing this music dream?
Not only does it become clearer, doors open.
Okay.
So there's no question about if anybody asks me why I believe in God and all that great stuff, it's because my experience has taught me that there were things that happened that really had nothing to do with what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Only in the sense that I had to agree to go ahead and make that step and do it.
Well, that's always how God works. You have to be in agreement and in alignment.
Exactly.
Until, you know.
That's why I say one of the dumbest interview questions I ever have encountered is, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Wherever God sees me.
There you go. I said, look, stuff has happened in the past 5 years that I could have never foreseen.
Okay, so you're doing this music thing. You graduate, and then what do? Where are you?
So I graduated from Princeton and applied to Yale School of Music and the Institute of Sacred Music. I said, well, if I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go on and get a graduate degree in music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, little known to me, one of my professors at Princeton was married to the director of the Institute of Sacred Music here at Yale.
Oh, so you got a hookup, or you got the information?
They didn't have the same last name.
So
I had no idea there was a connection.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what I mean. Some things are divinely ordered.
This is when you say, "Look at God."
There you go. And even after when so in my the second year of my master's here at Yale, I worked part-time at Co-op High. Because the choral conducting position then was part-time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually how I got into teaching because
I want to know because this is
I was in grad school. I needed some money. I needed some part-time money. Let me tell you, Connecticut was never cheap. I said, look,
and it still ain't.
I said, I need some ducats. I don't even know how I found out about the job. I really don't remember. But I said, let me apply, and I got it, and that's where I met Dr. Regina Lilly Warner,
Mm-hmm.
who certainly is still
beloved
stands out.
Dr. Regina Warner.
Talking about people who were musicians who made excellent administrators.
Mm-hmm.
They're between her and her husband, Dr. Charles Warner,
Mm-hmm.
are case in point for New Haven.
Mm-hmm.
So I started teaching at Co-op, and I couldn't believe what the students didn't know.
In terms of music,
They hadn't. This was the arts, and now, granted, the Arts Magnet School, the Arts Magnet program was not at the level where it is now.
mm-hmm.
So this was 1995,
Mm-hmm.
where things really were still getting shape.
Yeah, they was just yes, you're absolutely right. They were just getting started, and it was coming to fruition.
Right. So when I hear Arts Magnet School coming from Virginia,
You thinking
I'm thinking people who can,
fame? You think
I'm
it's all
thinking
done,
Duke
right?
Ellington School of Music,
Right.
right? Because coming from the South,
Yes.
when you have an Arts Magnet program, no, those people are serious musicians.
Yes. Yes.
And it was not yet that.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even close. And I said, well, how in the world did you have music from kindergarten through 8th grade, and you get to high school and you can't even read a note? You can't even identify notes, let alone read them.
Mm-hmm.
I was flabbergasted. I really was. I was surprised. I couldn't understand how they got that way.
But it's because, you know what, I think music here was not strong in schools. I mean, I think you got a sampling or a taste of music instruction, but I don't think it was full on.
Well, in New Haven, they always had music teachers. New Haven,
I grew up with a music teacher.
but this is what I'm saying. I said, well, what were they doing? I said, so, and I still wasn't thinking about teaching until we were in a professional development session one day, and I was talking about teaching so students go to college, and one of the English teachers said, "Who said they were going to college?" I almost fell over.
Whoa.
Because in Virginia, not going to college wasn't even discussed.
Wow.
It was so ingrained in you from kindergarten on with those teachers who grew up during segregation.
Mm-hmm.
And so in Richmond, you know, Richmond, I had a lot of teachers of color.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't even aware of Connecticut's dearth of teachers of color. Until,
which still exists.
oh, it exists more now than ever,
Mhm.
actually. And I did a project on that. That's a whole nother.
So, before we talk a little bit more about your foray into education, to education outside of music or inside of music, so you could have taken a different path. I mean, with your background and experience in education, I mean, you could be conducting somebody's something or other somewhere, anywhere in the world.
Yes, well, there are things to do after retirement.
Really?
I'm not done.
I know you're not
you know,
done, but you know, I asked this because I had Chelsea Tipton on the other week,
Mm-hmm.
who is the pops
Pops conductor.
conductor for the New Haven Symphony Orchestra, and he and I are about the same age. We're about the same 50, 54, 55. We're about the same age, and so his whole life has been about this. Like he forsake a lot to sort of be about this conductor's life, maestro life, and then here you come with probably much more impressive credentials, and you are interested in not chasing that dream fully, not forsaking everything for that level of musicship. Do you know what I'm saying?
So the wonderful thing about being a musician is so like being a woman. You are one till the day you die. Thinking Mom's Mabley, but there's a Mom's Mabley joke related to that. But
I know it.
So it is more so the case that things continue formulating.
Mm-hmm.
That you look as musicians as they mature, also begin to streamline or hone in on what they really want to do.
Okay.
So even in looking at Bach's earlier works compared to his later works, they are similar. You can tell he wrote them, but his later works are still more advanced. So that you continue to grow, you continue to develop, you continue to not only receive opportunities, but then you start to create them.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point in my life, I'm looking more at, what is my role as this bridge between the generations ahead of me and the generations that have come after me? Because I'll be 47 this year, 1972, 1972.
All right. Okay.
So
represent.
It really is the issue of what now?
Okay. So when you say what now, does that include continuing to be a teacher in somebody's school system?
So
I mean, do you because I get the sense that you're very wedded to this idea of teaching.
I am. But what we all know is so teaching serves in some ways as your give back to the community.
Mm-hmm. And black men teachers are few and far between.
Well, all you have to do, you know how you get more black teachers or black male teachers, how to get any teachers.
Mm-hmm.
You pay them. That's all you have to do. So in one of the studies I did, part of the challenge with teaching nationally is if you've been teaching for 30 years or more nationally, your average salary is $67,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for someone with a comparable degree level, the median salary for a 25-year-old is $77,000.
Wow.
So you can be 25 years old with a master's degree and out earn a teacher who's been teaching for 30
For
years.
30 years. And therein lies the problem.
It's a significant issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a no-brainer. If you really want people, you pay them.
Yes, we see that in the NFL, the NBA, and all other manner of places that can afford to pay.
And Connecticut is in a fortunate position in that our salaries are in the top 5 of the nation's salaries when it comes to paying public school teachers. But it becomes a challenge when you're challenged between feeding yourself
Mm-hmm.
and pursuing your life's passion. Maslow's hierarchy of needs says you're going to feed yourself
You're going to
first
feed yourself first.
and figure out later.
So in this pursuit of a doctoral degree, does that sort of lean you more so to staying in an educational surrounding, or what does that mean?
It's undetermined what it means. So the doctoral degree is
Because
really,
I think you're a student always. Like, you strike me as someone who thrives on that intense learning. I don't know you, but I just get that sense that if you've come through Princeton and Yale, that means you have a desire for. I mean, I would say the same thing if you came through Morehouse and Morgan.
So I never stopped learning and teaching. So teaching has been quite a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out as a musician, not as a teacher. I had to learn how to be a teacher. And I say that in the sense that you can have a great skill set, but you need to know how to communicate that skill set to the people in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
And what we know about urban teaching is you need an even larger skill set to help combat some of the social and emotional issues that come along with your students.
Okay, that's a good way of putting that.
So my students teach me every day.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I learn.
And you're at Barnard, which
Which is a great institution, Barnard Strong.
yes.
We're an environmental studies magnet school, and if the environment has taught us one thing, this is a planet that once had one large continent that now has 7. This is a planet that once supported dinosaurs. If we learn anything from our environment, we understand that change will come, challenges will come, but at some point you have to evolve and endure.
Mm-hmm. So as you're a full-time teacher over
Mhm.
there, and what do you teach?
Music.
Not the sciences either? Because I know sometimes teachers do dual duty.
No. Like I said, New Haven is far above some of our competitors. No, just music.
Okay.
But it's most of the schools. So, we have 500 and some odd students.
Over there at that school?
Yes.
I didn't know it was that many kids over there.
Yes, Barnard is the building that has been Barnard has been a school in New Haven for about 105 years.
I know the school, and I love the bridge across the the road
Mm-hmm.
that goes into the field, and then there's the marsh right there and the soccer field and all of that. So I like seeing that.
It's a good school. It's a good program. It's a unique unique program. It's the only school I know of that has a garden of its size. It's really right there in the West River community, so you can see nature at work. We have birds coming in, and its location makes it ideal for an environmental studies school.
So Jonathan, at this moment, you don't feel like music and teaching or music and education, which I don't like to say music and education because I think they're one and the same, but you don't feel in opposition or one has a pull on you or they're both pulling on you and you have to choose. That you feel like you can be in both worlds?
Well, so it's almost like having family members. You know, all children are different,
Mm-hmm.
and this child might need this, the other child might need that, another child might need something else. You learn to differentiate.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what needs to be done for whom, and when there are budgeting issues when it comes to time, you budget,
Okay.
and money, you budget.
So tell me about the music part, because we were at the New Haven Symphony Orchestra Gala a couple of weeks back, and we were having this wonderful conversation about music
Yes.
and gospel music in particular. And we were having this conversation because we were sitting there and we were talking about, I said, you know, gospel music has come a long way. It has become much more mainstream. You can hear gospel music in clubs, right?
Sure.
I mean, I think Kirk Franklin sort of opened the door. I could be wrong, but I think he opened the door between this music being secular, non-secular kind of thing. And people get a little feeling a kind of way about the movement of gospel music. I mean, you've got your Mary Marys and Kirk Franklin and all these other folks, and then you got these, and you know, Yolanda Adams and these people who sort of straddle the fence between pop and gospel and all of that. And then you have your purists like Mother Shirley Chisholm. I mean, Mother Shirley Caesar, and all these other folks who sort of are rooted squarely in old school gospel.
Well, I think part of the joy of being free is you're free to be all of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of us have grown up with an eclectic taste in
Mm-hmm.
music. I think to try, so the part of the challenge with the gospel music industry, or the music industry itself, is that it tries to pigeonhole people into, you are this kind of artist,
Mm-hmm.
you are this kind of artist, you are this kind of artist, and I think that whole mindset is archaic.
Mm-hmm.
And I respect those musicians that said, no, I'm going to do my own music and publish my own stuff, because I am who I am, and you're not going to tell me
Mm-hmm.
who I'm going to be or what I'm going to be.
Did you grow up listening to all kinds of music in your house?
Yes.
Even your father was a minister, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did he didn't forbid? Because I know ministers and preachers' kids whose parents were like, we're not going to listen to any of that world music.
And that was certainly it was not a mindset in my household, but it was certainly a mindset I know in my generation of growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the people tried to draw this strict line between the yay and the nay, but you know, the reality is Jesus hung around with thieves and prostitutes.
Lest we forget.
So not only lest we forget, but lest we refocus our ministries.
Mm-hmm.
He made it a specific point to stay away from people who thought they knew.
Mm-hmm.
So with this whole idea of music, you have to. How in the world do you know how to reach people if you don't have a variety of ways to reach them?
Mm-hmm. So do you find yourself at odds with today's church?
I find myself at odds more with people who don't know what they're doing. And not that they aren't skilled, but they don't have a vision for what they want to see happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're just playing Sunday by Sunday. They're doing what they hear. They say this song is hot, but this song is hot for what? This song is hot because it's out and new, or this song is hot because it works. It's going to minister to the people that I know.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Berryman household, my father liked crunchy peanut butter. We like smooth peanut butter. My father liked Roman meal, brown bread. Ugh. And we like.
I remember that bread. Holy cow! Oh my God!
And we were.
I've not heard that in forever.
I hadn't thought about it in forever. So this whole idea of differentiating.
Mm-hmm.
For
but he never said, I don't care what I buy, everybody gotta eat.
No, he never.
Really?
Never.
That's interesting.
So to the point where everybody had their own fork based on how it felt in their hand. Everybody had their own glass based on how it felt in their hand. So I learned differentiation from at my house, growing up with my parents.
Wow.
They didn't try to make all of us the same.
And what was the denomination?
Baptist.
Really?
Baptist. Mm-hmm.
Your parents were way ahead of their time.
Well, perhaps, but I think they also came from large families where they saw that level of differentiation throughout their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So this idea, what I am against is trying to run people.
And what does that mean? Go
Where
talk
you
deeper about
you
that.
You automatically assume that because they are where they are, that this is what they want. We automatically assume that young people want to sing contemporary gospel music. My experience is that they don't want to do it.
Really?
No. Most of the young people I know, they want to sing. They would prefer to sing an anthem because they know when it starts, they know when it ends. The parts don't kill them off. They know how high it goes, how low it goes. These are the exact notes. These are the exact notes that I sing. When it's over, it's over. I sit down.
Oh.
I said so too. So I think my real issue with church is it assumes that unless you are doing calisthenics, jumping up, sweating all over, hollering and screaming, that you don't have the Holy Ghost and nothing's going in. I was like, there was a time when you went to church to be refreshed. Now I know aerobics classes that don't require as much as church does. Oh, boom, 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 boom. High five your neighbor. Y'all too quiet for me. Somebody holler.
But you know what? But you know what, Jonathan? I have friends and sorority sisters and folks that I talk to that they don't feel like it's church unless they have that experience. I don't.
Well,
I don't care for that because I go to UCC church, which is a whole different kind of vibe. But because I grew up Pentecostal, I don't like that fiery kind of existence.
Well, interestingly enough, so I grew up Baptist where if somebody said amen, the ushers would come over like white blood cells and usher you out. Infection. Oh, you'd be going so fast.
Because they didn't want it to lead into showtime?
No, because that person was in the wrong church. We don't do that over here.
Oh.
No, baby, you need to go on round corner. We won't do that here.
Okay.
This service lasts an hour and 15 minutes. Ain't nobody hollering. It is orderly. We's educated.
That's the UCC way. Hour 15 minutes, that includes coffee hour.
You might be my brother, blood brother or sister, but you can't do that up in here. So that was one version. And then there was the other version of church where everybody ran around. Church was 3 hours long. Everybody falling asleep, waking back up. So that was another version.
That's how I grew up, with that Pentecostal,
right,
all day kind of thing. I loved it though when I was a kid.
So I think that so what real music does is it combines all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That there, if you listen to a cantata, I think Mendelssohn's Elijah, the oratorio, it's 2 hours long, but it's 2 hours of music, and it takes you up, it takes you down, it makes you want to run, it makes you contemplative. Mm-hmm. So the challenge I have with modern church is that mixture is not in the right combination.
Explain a little bit better, more.
So praise and worship music. So if your praise and worship session starts with without fire, you're doing it wrong. So I think about cooking. I don't cook a lot, but what I do know is you turn that heat up high and you sear both sides of whatever you're doing.
Yes.
And then you do what?
Then you turn it down.
You don't keep it on high, do you?
No, you don't keep it on high.
Okay, our churches are keeping it on high.
Uh-huh.
So everybody leaves burnt up and exhausted. So that's one version.
But do you think people want that? I mean, or do you think... what do you gauge that to be about?
It allows people to ignore the truth.
Okay.
So if
That's
everything's
pretty
if
powerful.
everything's on high, then that means they don't really intend for me to learn anything. As long as I jump, they're happy. I can actually come here and fake the funk and leave with no change.
Oh.
I can leave unchanged. I can come here dance because I didn't have $10 to go to the club last night. I can run around, do this, tap the off and play because I ain't giving no money. And I can do all that stuff and leave, see everybody, holler, kiss, scope the place out, leave with no spiritual change whatsoever.
Wow.
I was entertained, but I was not changed.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. And that's just observation. Observation?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So
then there's the other side,
okay,
where they forget to turn the heat up high, and they start everything on low. Then they want to turn it up on high later, because y'all are too quiet up in here. When we already put you to sleep with what we call praise and worship.
Mm-hmm.
I said, well, no, this ain't how you cook either. Y'all just making a mess.
so you have a lot of things to draw from, musically, spiritually, from a rich sort of background. How do you find a place where you feel like, okay, this is where I can worship, praise and worship. I can be in this space, and this speaks to my spirit. How do you identify that? How do you find that? How do you make peace around that?
Well, I think a lot of it is you plan it. So one thing for certain, anybody who's only in church, trying to praise and worship only in church, you got it wrong already. It's supposed to be a daily thing that you do, and church is supposed to be what we do collectively in celebration of what God has done, what God is doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a community celebration.
Mm-hmm.
So, and in addition to that, it is also in the work I do. So you were talking about how teaching and all of this stuff connects. So part of my spiritual life is honoring God with the gifts I have,
Mm-hmm.
and applying it to education. If I know how to do something and I don't share that gift, then I'm held accountable for not sharing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it is not so much, so education is a bona fide part of who I am for that reason. That's why I went into education. I just couldn't see people who had great skill and great ability going through life not knowing simply because nobody taught them.
So talk to me your desire for choral leadership, because you have a choral.
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been doing that? And why are you doing that?
So it actually started when I was 12, because I could play the keyboard and all that stuff, and so I started working with choirs back when I was a teenager.
Really?
Because churches needed musicians who could play and who could work with singers, and that's really where I started singing and teaching parts and all of that great stuff, and working with choral music. So even before I went to Princeton, I was already a musician. I'd taken organ lessons at Virginia Commonwealth University. I'd sung in choirs. So it was really a natural progression of things to continue. I always wanted to continue with music. I just didn't know I wanted to do it professionally.
Okay. So you have this choral.
Mm-hmm.
How big is it?
The choir, the Heritage Chorale I have has about 35 members, and we're always looking for more. We need some more tenors and basses and altos. Preferably people who know how to read music, because of the level of music that we do.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact,
I can't join because I don't read music.
Well, so that doesn't mean you can't join. It just means it's gonna be more work. So we're singing William Grant Stills and They Lynched Him on a Tree on the 24th of March in Boston with Coro Allegro, which is an LGBTQ plus choir.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
and how is that going over?
So, and They Lynched Him on a Tree is just that. It's a lynch scene. So it's written for white.
This is heavy.
Oh yeah, William Grant Still was no joke. He is credited with writing the first symphony by an African American composer. And so he wrote this work for white choir and black choir. So the white choir sings about the lynching, going to lynch the person. Come along, fellows, come along.
Oh God.
And the black choir finds the body.
That's oh, I don't.
Oh yeah.
And you're doing this with the Latin lesbian
LGBTQ plus.
okay.
So
that's a lot.
It is. We did it. We actually performed
I don't even
it
know
with
how
them.
you unpack that.
We performed it with them 20 years ago in Boston, and we get to do it again in 1999, and we get to do it again in just over a month.
So is that important to you to have that community be a part of this piece? Like, because there's a whole. I mean, you could do this with any choir, right? You could do this with anybody. Was it deliberate and intentional to use? Yeah.
So they invited us. They wanted to sing the piece again, and they contacted us because we sang it with them the last time to do it again. And I think it is both choirs are challenged to sing this piece. Because in neither group, I don't think anybody wants to sing about being the part that lynches anybody in this day and time.
Mm-hmm.
And in talking with the director and with other people from their choir, and certainly in talking with ours, this is just difficult text. It's a difficult scene a difficult piece to sing. At the end, they come together and talk about what an injustice it was, and how it is now our job to clear the long dark shadow that has fallen across our land.
Oh, that's a lot.
So it is. In talking with Judith,
that's a lot.
Judith Still, William Grant Still's daughter, she said that this piece was inspired by the fact that he was part of a group of people that were traveling. He traveled with W.C. Handy, and one night they saw a group of white men dragging a black man behind them, and the person driving the wagon pulled over and said, "Lights out, boys." So it was his experience in seeing and being a part of that lynch thing that really drew him to this text, and created and gave birth to this piece.
So, do you think churches have some responsibility to sort of stand on these kinds of messages, to stand in the place of taking leadership of injustice?
Absolutely.
Because that's a big piece to take on, right? Like that's in your face.
It's very much in your face, especially when
like that's not polite.
He literally wrote, the white choir sings about lynching the people, the man, and the black choir sings about finding him. And then there's a soloist and a narrator. The soloist is the mother, and she talks about her poor baby boy and all of this stuff. And but at the end they come together and sing about what we now must do.
Wow.
So I don't think there can be church without some kind of social justice agenda.
Wow.
So so as we talk about music, part of my challenge with churches right now is they and I'll specifically talk about the African American church, is modern music doesn't always connect to past experience.
I think you have a damn good point right there, because I think there is a real disconnect. There's a real disconnect, and I think that's probably why I've not taken to it that way, because I feel like there's a piece that's missing, like there's no connection to something.
And it seems to me that as if that connection was deliberate, that disconnection was deliberately decided. That we don't want to reflect our past. We only want to reflect this. Raise your hands in the air. This this sense of spirituality that could fit any religion, really, without honoring what has transpired before we got here, or what people even had to do to build the church that you're now shouting in.
So, are you a fan of prosperity gospel, prosperity message, prosperity teachings, leanings?
In the sense, probably yes. I'll say yes because there's an inherent prosperity in just being free and knowing the truth.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
I know you're talking about people who name it and claim it, and lies are lies. If God doesn't want you to have it, you're not gonna get it. I don't care what you pray over. And I thank God for the stuff He didn't give me. Thank you, Lord, because I might have been thinking too small.
Jonathan, do you think that the church is catching up to modern day?
No, I think.
Do you think the church could be I mean, I still hear opposition to they don't mind gay people coming to church. They just can't say you're gay in church.
It depends on where you are.
And,
there's some churches that still don't do female preachers.
yes.
There's still some churches that don't let you dance. There's still some churches that
can't wear pants or makeup.
You can't wear pants, and you can't drink alcohol. At least not. You can't acknowledge the fact that you do, even though they got a pint jar of moonshine in the back of their refrigerator in case they get a cough. So I don't. This idea of hypocrisy, I think, is one of those issues that Jesus tried to face. Y'all want to stone this woman, but all y'all want to stone her for her sin. Oh, okay. The one without sin, you go on and throw the first stone.
Hello.
One by one, they all went away.
So we got to wrap up. So give me a sense of Jonathan to the future. As best as you can. And the future could be in the next 5 minutes, the next 5 years, the next 1,500 years. I don't know.
Well, part of my leaning right now is, as I look at the landscape of New Haven has enough musical talent in this city to really make the world take notice if it would come together and stop perpetrating the fraud that it is greater than God. So it's time to humble ourselves and come together as a collective and to see what we can do. The last time I looked, all of us are human, and I don't care what you've been nominated for, who you wrote for, what award you have. All of that stuff is great and dandy, but that ought not be who you are. Nor should that influence whether or not you interact with other people. So I think New Haven would do a whole lot better all the way around with about 5 shots of humility and 4 doses of honesty.
So do you feel like New Haven is your home? Because you've been here quite some time.
Every time I looked to leave, it was a pay cut, and I know that wouldn't have gone.
So is New Haven home?
Very much so. I can't see myself living anywhere else in Connecticut. People say, well, why don't you leave? Why don't you go? I said, for what? If God wanted me to go, when God wants me to go, He will say go. He'll make it clear that it's time to go. Until
but you still feel very rooted here.
More and more so, and not only rooted here, but having an obligation to help it grow.
Okay. And that's in the school system as well as
that's all around
on the music and
the music, the educational front, the music front. So and I was talking to someone a few weeks ago. So we have a large Latino population, we have a large African American population, we have a large surrounding white population. Where is our choir, our community choir, that reflects all of those cultures?
So is that your next? So am I getting a scoop? Is that is this a Jonathan Berryman scoop?
I don't know.
Is that
but
what
it
you're
was
about to
placed in
do?
my- I said we have.
I mean, there's a Salt and Pepper Choir. I mean, they are very diverse. Have been for 30 years or so.
That's true, but I and what's particularly
that's just
missing for
one-
me is our
that's just
Latino
one, yeah.
population.
Yeah.
Where are the connections that bridge all of us into one true New Haven?
Sounds like you've got a new calling. Listen, I don't know. God is not working through me, but maybe He is today. I don't know. Maybe
You said
maybe God is saying, Jonathan, we need a choir with Latinos, whites, and Black people. Make it happen.
We do. It needs to look like New Haven.
Mm-hmm. The New Haven Choir.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And they would sing all of the music that reflects all of that.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like you got a new calling. All you gotta do is pick a church and tell people to come. Like we're gonna meet up. Where we gonna meet up? We're gonna meet up where? So that we can learn this music and do a performance.
Let's start with the advisory board. Jesus chose 12 people, one of whom was a dud, but they did help him do the work.
Say what you want. It's the truth. Thank you, Jonathan. I enjoy you. You have to come back.
Likewise, I
Because
would
there
love
was
to.
so much more. I wish I had more time because there's so much more I want to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Gosh, you are such a wealth of knowledge, and I enjoyed this. And
Me
I don't
too.
want to wait till the next, gala to see you, sit next to you to talk about that. And my friend Andrew Kaplan is a huge fan, so he was like, I can't wait to listen. I was like, yeah.
Well, this has been fun. Thank you for inviting me to come and to share with you this morning.
Amen. I think we'd be good together. We should have a church.
Look, I'm sure it would be well attended.
Oh, all souls are welcome kind of church.
That's right.
Where the music not only feeds you, it heals you, it uplifts you, it inspires you, and the Word of God, where art and intellect meet.
I assure you, people would attend.
I think so. Thank you, Jonathan. Now get to the gym.
That's right.
All right. Thank you, Brian, for sitting in this morning as the engineer. What do I have to do? Okay, I want to play some music so I can get off. So, all right. Sorry about that, people. It's a little dead air. Are we on? Okay. Thank you, Jonathan Berryman.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I love you.